today, if you remember the first video I did, you remember the twig fire that we made? Let's go into a little bit of a review with that. What did we start off with? Well, we started off with a very highly combustible material for our tinder bundle. It was readily capable of taking a spark from a ferrocerium rod, and then it would ignite. Then we added the 3 different sizes of smalls that we had to create that roaring fire. That was a pretty good fire that I just made with relatively nothing. I didn't collect, you know, a bundle this big of twigs and then my 3 times the prep, which I explained in that video. But again, you can see what a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of skill and a little bit of practice, what you can affect very quickly. I'm going to teach you 2 other methods today that can help you affect a fire. And one of them is plainly called a twig bundle fire. So let's go gather up some of that material and we'll come back and we'll do that. And it's relatively simple. Alright guys, so the materials that we're going to be collecting for this, you see all this stuff that's blowing in the breeze? All this old goldenrod, things of that nature, all these dead plants, that's what we want to start to collect, because that is going to give us something that's going to go with the gas line. So that's what we're going to be collecting. Alright guys, so this took a little bit less than 5 minutes to collect. And again, preparation is everything. The more we collect, the better chance that we're going to have for greater success when we're making our fire. Remember, preparation is everything. So I have roughly about this much. And of course, if I gathered 3 times that prep, I'm going to have more to affect my fire, or I'm going to have at least enough for 2 other fires thereafter. So, something that you should be in mind when you're out and you're collecting your resources, where there is one resource, there's obviously more resources. So, we saw all these old cattail heads. Well, we can use them in our tinder bundle. So, let's collect some of this as well. And we'll be using that for some other things. And I'll show you a little trick with this as well. And again, if you're being observant and you're looking for more resources, not 20 feet from those cattail, if you look here, you see these plants? These are last year's plants and they've died off. You could use them in your tinder bundle as well, but you can also use them for cordage. If you see this stalk after it's brown, the best time to collect this actually is right after the first frost in October. Notice the tops, they branch out, and this actually resembles milkweed. And in a later video, what we're going to do is we're going to see this while it's growing and it's green. Okay, we don't have too many stalks that are up here right now that are new, but this is the old one. One of the dead giveaways in Dogbane is, you see this? That's the long seed pod, and that's the difference. One of the differences between Dogbane and milkweed. Dogbane has a long, skinny, almost looks like a vanilla pod, where we know what the seed heads look like on milkweed. So, very easily, we can look right here. Look, this is already started to come off. And this is what you're going to make your cordage with. So, something to bear in mind. Another resource that you can gather and you can use. So while we were out in the field, I showed you it took relatively a very short period of time to collect what we needed to collect to affect this fire. I will caution you, I do have some wind out here today and things are kind of dry. We had a few days of rain, but some of the top stuff is dried out and I don't want to cause forest fire here either. So I'm going to use probably about half this bundle. But just remember, again, that the more time that you collect, the more prep that you have, the better off you are for success and to have material for the next fire. Okay, so relatively simply, let's just take half of this. And the procedure would still be the same. Very simply, we figure out the middle of it and we just fold it in half. And as you can see, we have our highly combustible material here and we have some extra fuel here. So now we'll just take our lighter. And we just start to let it go. And we can use this to get anything going that we need to get going. We can dry out. And we can go from there. Again, very simple with what we have and very minimal resources. We had highly combustible material. We had small twigs to save the fire, and it was able to go up relatively easy. So the next fire that we want to discuss that you can put as a tool in your toolbox is, if you remember in the first video when I explained the twig fire per se as being 3 different sizes of fuels, being pencil lead, pencil, and then finally your thumb size fuel for your fire. What you're going to wind up doing in the 1-stick fire is we're going to take, you know, a stick or sticks that are about as big as your wrist. They don't have to really be any larger. And then we're going to baton them down into those sizes of fuels. We're going to make a few feather sticks to help along the way, and we're going to create that fire for you. What do we need to do? Well, we need to find those sticks for our fuel. Let's say this area is devoid of smalls, or you just don't happen to have it. Okay, this is something that you need to do. So this is a pretty good candidate. It's not much bigger than my wrist, so we'll just take advantage of it. Okay, it's not that much bigger. Not that much bigger than my wrist. Just a good candidate. So we've gone ahead and we've got our fuel, or what's going to become our fuel for our next fire. What are some of the other things that we need to baton this piece of wood down? Of course, if we had an axe, it would make it easier, but we're going with our knife today. So we're going to need our knife. We have to make sure that it's in proper working order, it's sharp, it's clean, and it's ready to go. The other thing that you're going to need after your knife is a baton. We need something with some substantial weight because we're going to use this to drive the knife blade through the wood to create the fuel needed for our fire. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to start to half this. Okay, we're going to go in half. And we're going to take that half and then we're going to go in half again and a half again. We're going to continue to half this down until we have at least a minimum of 32 pieces. If you have more, that's even better. Remember, it's a one stick fire, so we're going to use this today. Alright, now I'm going to process this down. We're going to need to have some type of anvil to go underneath the wood, so I've just chosen a nice flat rock. Minding, we have to be careful of the edge of our knife. If we have a piece of wood, we can do that. We can also do that with the next piece that we half off. Hold our knife. Notice where the edge of my knife is. Notice where the blade is. We're going to drive this right down until we break it in half. Okay, now we have another anvil. So now we can take this and we can half this again. And then we just continue to break it down. What I see people doing a lot of times is they'll take it all the way down. But if you go about halfway, you can actually just twist your knife. That's all you need to do. And then it'll break apart. Now we're going to keep reducing this down, and then we're going to show you some feather sticks and how we prepare this fire. What I want to do now is I'm going to create what's known as a feather stick. So we take one of our pieces of wood and we take an edge. And we just start creating little feathers. And we slowly work our way around the piece of wood. And we create these curls. And you can go all the way around a stick to create curls. Remember, when you get done with your feather stick, it should look something like this. The more curls that you have, the better success rate you're going to have, because these curls are going to ignite and they're going to dry out, especially if you have marginal wood. Again, something to consider. The deeper you go into the wood, the outside layer may be a little damp, but the inside, you're going to have to get down to it, and you're going to have to work for it to get to the dry wood. Hey guys, again, remember, we want to stave off dehydration. So what are we going to do? We're going to be constantly drinking while we're out here and while we're working. Doesn't matter the size of the task, whether it be small, whether it be large, whether you're hiking a lot, or whether you're just processing firewood. We want to make sure that we continue to drink. Mors Kohansky says that when you start off in the morning, when you wake up, you're dehydrated, which is why he carries a bush pot. And that bush pot is the equivalent of 7 cups of tea. So if you wake up from your slumber and you drink the amount of a bush pot, or at least one of these, you're on a way to not being dehydrated for the rest of the day. So remember, drink it up. It's better in your body than outside your body. And a lot of times you'll find fat wood there in the stump. Another place where you can find it is in the tree, where the branch comes into the side of the tree. If you break it off there and smell it, there's a good chance that there's going to be a collection of fat wood in that adjoining piece when it goes into the tree itself. Another thing, when you're making your feather sticks, you're going to find a lot of times those shavings are going to come off. Collect those shavings and use them, because they will also act as smalls for your fire. You see my fat wood that's running in that vein. And you remember how we discussed a 90-degree spine in the first video? Well, you can use that back of that spine, and you can get that. And this is all going to help you when you're starting your fire. So you go ahead and you process this out, and this is what you're going to have. And you're going to use that. Alright, so here's the components of the one stick fire. We've processed one stick down to make our fuel and our tinder for this fire. Here we have our fat wood shavings and any shavings that came off when we were making our feather sticks. Here we have those feather sticks.